I mean, that's just the name that. No, I'm serious. Like, why are you laughing? We're off to one of those starts already.
It's a good Monday.
Because
good Monday.
Who doesn't like a less?
This weekend?
Who doesn't like
this
it?
Weekend?
Well, you guys were part of some trade bait, so you probably feel like.
I mean, I have some fuel on the NFL front coming into
well that
Monday
and your Blues.
Oh, geez, the Blues are just tossing everybody away.
Hey,
I hope Zach Dean pays off.
Dude, did you realize that Malkin, Crosby, and Letang played 800 games together?
That's
a lot.
A lot like Taze and Kane, and could you pull Duncan Keith in?
I don't know. But did he really get spit on this weekend? Did you
see
it? Oh, it was Doughty. I was thinking good defenseman. You're right. It was Doughty. And I was like, you don't see that in
penalized.
You don't see that in hockey a ton. And I saw a replay for a 4-minute misconduct.
How big was the loogie?
So there were a couple of different. Those were two different instances that I saw in the NHL. Because you know what I think? There's two sports that I think do replay better than just about anyone else. And I know one of these factions is going to be like, well, you don't say, man. Did you see the Kel Lordson match? But it's a different kind of replay. Wrestling and I think NHL hockey do replay. College hockey or college wrestling, like it's so bang bang, and I think more times than not they get it right, and I like how quickly they do it. But NHL gets it right too.
Yeah. There's a lot of sports, though, that are kind of trending that way now.
Sans the hands pass from about 4 years ago. But Stanley Cup Finals, but whatever.
We talking hand pass?
No, I meant ham pies. I was talking fruit pies.
Oh,
fruit pies, man. I'm a fruit pie guy.
Are you? Apple, cherry, blackberry?
So blackberry is the blueberry knockoff. They've now gone to mixed berry with some of the other, like JJ's and some others. Hostess was always blueberry. They had the mixed berry, wild berry, rightly so. It didn't last long. They went with the raspberry, the peach, the apple. Hostess just needs to bring the whole thing back, man. I would. For about 16 years, I was willing to die on that hill. I got off probably about a year and a half ago when I stopped getting replies from Hostess. Stop emailing us. We're not bringing the pies back. I said, well,
you walked in today and you're like, man, I hop on these Google forums. I got to get on the waffle crisp train now.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring back.
And then now I'm hearing about you just hammering Hostess.
Hostess basically told me that I didn't understand
to go kick rocks.
Well, that cost effective. We got into overhead. We got into
You really had a back and forth with a customer service rep at Hostess?
Well, this has been going on since like 2013.
It's continuous? You still
I stopped. It only went on for about 5 years. I would say I would say 6, 2013 to about 2019.
You're not helping your case here.
Well, I'm just being honest.
Conversation for 6 years.
Because a couple of times a year I would ask again because I would see them tease me with like random flavors. I was like, hey, if you're still rolling with apple and cherry, are those just exponentially cheaper than like peach and blueberry? Like I see cartons of blueberries for $3.99. HBO, man, help a brother out. Go back to making blueberry Hostess pies. Nah, not doing it. Discontinued that line 10 years ago. Who are you? Well, I'm just random customer. These are real.
Do you not know who I am?
Yeah, I'm just and I'm probably like what, one of a billion people. That it's like, well, I know there's more than that in the world, but I'm just saying that would actually email. I don't even think there's a billion. I'm one of probably about.
I can tell you what,
am I one of 10 that would email Hostess?
If I had a tizzy with a company, I would send one email and be done with it.
Would you?
I would not
persistence.
I would not last 6 years back and forth about various things that just pop up over the months.
So I rolled in this morning and I'm just sitting out in the parking lot and my window's down and I know it's
raining.
It's rain. Is that rain or is it kind of dewy mist or is it rain?
It was rain.
Okay. Didn't seem like it was
rain.
Didn't seem like it was really coming
drizzle.
coming in my window, so I like to have the windows down. I had a window down. I'm like, golly, man, it smells like waffle crisp. And I'm a huge waffle crisp guy. Shane, of course, likes different. Shane, I want to get this right. You get mad. It's not. Is it a juice? Is it a oil? What do I call the stuff you put in your little
Vape juice.
Is it juice?
Yeah, it's juice.
Okay, what's the flavor today?
It's a caramel coffee.
Oh, that's what it is. I'm way off. It smells like waffle crisp. So I walked in and you said your usual morning DB, and I was like, man, we need to bring back waffle.
Well, first
crisp.
off, you came through the wrong door. That's
Yeah.
how I knew today was going to go sideways, because you did not come through the double doors.
Yeah, you're like, oh, what are you doing? I was like, oh, just taking a walk.
And it was brisk.
Yeah,
Like you basically ran to the stage.
dude, I have to get my mind right. And I came on the other side. I never come up that side usually. I typically come up this side.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I just want to bring back waffle crisp.
You seem
But I-
very hurt right
But I
now.
don't have the energy.
I told you too. My cousin. So every year we do Secret Santa.
You seem very
And
hurt
all
right
he put
now.
on
You
his
get-
Is he
list-
still a secret?
Is he still a secret?
Yeah,
I
Santa.
mean, he's not a secret guy. If that's what you're asking.
Wow.
Unlike you.
Woo woo.
And so he put
Bet you didn't break the news to her.
never. I will never do that. Although, before I tell this waffle crisp story, my fireplace inside the house changes colors because it's electric. And I, over the weekend, was FaceTiming with my mom, and Clara's like, I want to see Uncle Woo Woo. So she grabs the phone, and I'm like, Clara, say abracadabra, and you can change the color. Well, here we go. And look what I started. She's abracadabra, 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 and abracadabra, abracadabra.
You're like, what?
Day and a half later, I'm talking to my mom on the phone. Clara, I hear her in the distance. Abracadabra. She's like, I want to do abracadabra. I'm like, oh man, look what I started. Completely off topic, but waffle crisp. He put it on a Secret Santa list, and that's all he wanted. So my other cousin who had him just hid boxes of cereal around his house
All
and
waffle
made
crisp.
him track it down. All waffle crisp. He opened every box up, and it was just. Is that Kellogg's?
I think it's Post.
Is it Post?
Yeah.
It does seem like a Post thing, because doesn't Post do like those corn?
Yeah, I think
corn puffs,
I
corn
think
pops?
I think it's
Corn pops.
I think it's
is what it is.
Post. I don't know why they got rid of that cereal, but it was fire. But anyway, that's
As we get off our food.
so that's
our
really
food
what
box.
started the
Yeah.
morning.
What it?
It's Post.
Oh, it's Post. Okay,
Yeah,
I thought that was corn pops when I was looking over at it at first.
fire.
Well, another
Now
email is
they're-
being sent today.
They're now calling it a nostalgic breakfast classic.
You could probably get that off of Amazon in bulk.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Last time I checked, it wasn't available.
Discontinued forever, huh? They'll bring
Yeah.
it back.
Yeah,
That was a fan favorite for a lot of people.
like sexy. Bring it back.
Mhm. Justin
Shane, who's
Timberlake.
saying? There you go.
Sorry.
No, I figured he would know. I sometimes like when it's music,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
like, yeah. I
Well, if
don't
it
know.
has anything to do with
Are you-
breaking down the dance floor at homecoming, ooh,
Oh
get me
my-
going.
Oh my lord. Oh gosh, another overrated phenomenon of this homecoming.
Homecoming.
You can get waffle crisp off of Amazon right now for $20 a box or
Part-
30.
Stop it. A
Seriously.
box?
It's $28.
Now that's
Oh,
ridiculous.
it's 2 boxes.
It
but
doesn't
still.
matter.
There's only
That's ridiculous.
There's only 14 left in stock. You better order soon.
14 left in stock. So you're telling me people bought this for $28?
Here's a
you think
here's
I'm
a
kidding?
$50 box.
You think? You think?
I mean,
I've
I'm not.
loo-
I
I've
know
looked-
the craze.
I've looked at this.
I know the craze
for
for
a
waffle
while.
crisp, but I am not spending
It's ridiculous to find.
300 times what it's worth.
It's tough, man. It's tough out here.
You're telling me that you would spend $28 on 2 boxes of cereal
No, I would not.
because you have a brain.
My mom gave me a box of cereal yesterday morning that hadn't been opened. It was Trix,
For
Yeah.
Zoe.
and it was family size. I'm like, oh, that would be good for the week. She's like, oh, take that before it goes bad. I had to make sure I looked at the expiration date. It's February 26th.
If it was sealed, that should be fine.
And it was.
Yeah.
It was. I spent a lot of time with her yesterday. It's very therapeutic.
Your mom?
I actually cooked over there for the first time on a humbug. I just wanted to go drop off some donuts.
Whose kitchen do you like more, hers or yours?
She has more toys, but I prefer my kitchen. It's a little bigger.
Just because of the openness of your
Yeah.
first floor.
She has way more toys. She has this cool hood. She has like the double stove. She has the cool pots that I think even glue wouldn't stick to it. No, I'm serious.
The as seen on TV,
Bro,
pots and pans.
it's like you don't even need. I put cheese on the bottom, shredded cheese. No cooking spray. Just flipped it over after I poured the eggs in. No problem. Oh yeah, that bad boy slid right out.
What is that pan that
I don't know.
does that?
I should have.
It's the one that has the bronze
Yeah,
interior.
copper something or another. I don't
Yes.
know. But anyway, so I emptied her dishwasher. And this is vintage, Mom, because normal people sometimes you can take a day to empty your dishwasher. And I said, "Hey, are these dirty or clean?" And I opened it up, and she said, "I'm embarrassed to say that those have been in there since yesterday morning." And they were still clean, right? I'm like, "Oh, you'd be way ahead in our house." Like, he's only been in here 24 hours and they're clean.
You're like, that's it?
Oh man, you got an 8-hour start on our house. Shoot.
I'm
Wait,
embarrassed to say.
See,
It is a mom thing to say something like that. Though.
would you like to take a guess on the total number of dishes in there was less than 15?
I was going to say, I'm going to say 3 plates.
But it's funny
2
because
bowls.
everything, I come by honestly, everything in there had a place to go. Hey, where do these bowls go? Oh, they go above the ceramic ones on the left side. Oh, hey, these are measuring bowls. Where should I put these? Well, those go with the measuring cups. I said, Mom, you have 5 measuring cups. Hey, who has 5
My mom.
Pyrex glass measuring cups? Do you know the theory? In case you're baking and it's a big recipe and you need multiple things that go in cups, you don't just put it in the cup and pour it in and pour something in the cup. You have 5 cups. I mean, why wouldn't you? So you can do it 5 times at once. I mean, hey.
Well, especially if you have, think if you're dealing with oil and then you have to put flour in a cup. Like, would you wash that
Oh,
out, try
Mr.
it out?
Pragmatic.
I'll take 2 cups.
Bro, what about the ones that you just have the handle and you dump? You don't need the glass Pyrex ones.
Oh, no. No, the little handle cups
No,
is
she
what
has-
I'd use.
She
I know
has
it.
5
Right.
Pyrex measuring cups. It's a lot. But when you have that much space, she just got this cool. I don't even know why we're doing this the first segment on a Monday, but it happens with us. She got rid of her bread box because she got a new 5-in-1. I finally welcomed her to the air fryer world. Remember, I had to go over and set it up. So
yeah.
she has a singular tube where you just put a loaf of bread in it, and you put a container on it. It's clear see-through. It's the length of a
I've
loaf.
seen one of those before.
I said, "Was this really necessary, Mom?" And she goes, "Well, you can't just have a random loaf of bread on your countertop."
I do.
I was like, "Oh, okay." She's just cooler than a fan. And then, of course, yeah, get ready to leave. And she goes, "See, this is what it's all about. Just impromptu visits. Had a nice time. I enjoy your company." I was like, walk of shame to the truck. I guess I don't impromptu visit enough.
I don't know, Damon. Random loaf of breads are always pretty good.
Dude, you got to see this container. I didn't even know they made such things.
They make things for everything. Everything.
Dude, if I had like just crazy discretionary
It's like a
income,
cake container.
I'd have
for
all,
bread.
I'd have all the toys. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what you need in that kitchen. She has it. It's unreal.
It's ridiculous.
Dude, her kitchen scissors you could use in surgery. I'm like, what do you use these once a year? They're so sharp. I sharpen mine once a week. They're so bad.
I don't even sharpen mine.
Oh, I have to. Dude, can you use dull cutlery?
I do. Not my knives, but
it's a pet peeve.
scissors. I don't really use scissors all that much.
Oh, kitchen shears are the best. Wait till you start like
I feel like we have
spatchcocking
some of
chickens.
those.
But anyway, I assume at some point, what is the clock, man? We're just having like
We're having
family time.
we're having a good morning.
How were your parents this weekend? Were they good? Did you check in?
I did on
ask them-
Sunday.
Did you ask them about service? Do you realize, did you catch your mom dancing in here?
No.
Oh yeah, and I didn't want to stare, but it was
when the music was playing.
Yeah.
Did we finish?
we weren't done. She just like stood up and was dancing. I was like, you know what?
My
See?
mom vibes.
And there's joy, right? That I always tell people they worry too much about happiness. Happiness comes from what's happening. Like she has like true joy. Like
know-
you could tell her peace comes from seeing other people function.
Right.
She's with her little fam. By the way, I don't know if my family. I told you could hang out in here and just chill.
They wanted
somebody
to
would-
watch.
Somebody would probably killed somebody. I called my mom yesterday after my sister got in from St. Louis, and she's like, "I heard I just missed you by 5 minutes. You couldn't wait." It's like, oh hey,
Sick.
glad you got here safe.
No, you talk about pure joy. I was at Omaha hockey this weekend, Friday night to be specific, because I went to the team Jack Gala in Lincoln, which I'll tell you a
I
story.
want to hear about that.
But at the Omaha hockey game, there was a little girl. I ended up meeting her, age 9, 10. Her name was Ariana, but she was wearing St. Cloud State gear.
Yeah.
But she was in a cheerleading outfit. And every stoppage when music would play, she had her pom-poms in hand, would walk into the aisle and just start doing like
How
her
old
little
was she?
dance. Like 10 years old.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, like I said, fan of another team. But I was talking to some people upstairs because I like to give a puck to a kid every single game. It's just something
I
that
want a puck.
I can get you
Show
a
up
puck.
and you get me one.
Yeah. Well, I'll give it to Zoe, and then you can take it from her.
What if I want to bring her?
Then I'll give it to you because you are a child. But I give a puck to a kid every single game. And I saw her, and I was talking to people upstairs, and I said, "Do you see that little girl down there?" I said, "She's wearing St. Cloud State gear, but I think I'm going to give my puck to her." And they're like, "Oh, okay," like kind of like confused at first. And I'm like, because people don't understand the courage and the strength it takes to actually do that at a big arena in front of all these people and just not have a care in the world, because she's having fun. She's doing her, and I love that.
Yeah, I'm on this whole life is too short thing, especially after spending time with my mom. And Severe tweeted out that the famous TikTok of the parenting advice from the mom when she was like, "Let her wear the dress." Did you ever watch that? I'll
Let
send it to
her
you. But
wear the dress.
the moral of the story is, hey, let your kids kind of experience joy being kids, like, because you never know when it's going to be your last day. She unexpectedly lost her sister, so anyway, it's kind of a whoo moment. And then the other thing was, I always go back to the worst best episode of This Is Us, where Randall lost his dad to cancer, and I'm weird. Like, I've watched this probably 30 times. I just watched it 2 weeks ago at 2:30 in the morning on YouTube. I just wanted to see that sequence one more time because I'm a glutton for punishment. But anyway, his dad says to Randall, he said, "Grow your hair out, roll the window down, play your music loud." Like, as if because Randall's pretty uptight. And I just I'm just kind of on that whole misery is an option thing, man. Like, just keep it moving. I had a great talk yesterday afternoon with good buddy of mine who you know DJ Rizak.
Mhm.
Anyway, great love yourself kind of talk. Is probably 35 minutes. It was supposed to only be 5, but anyway, his kiddo's got another offer. But so I'm in this like kind of embrace the moment kind of thing, which leads me back to the sports weekend where you had so many things come down to the wire. And the McCaffrey stare. There were just so many things in sports that happened this week. Dylan Raiola just soaking in the moment. Some people roll their eyes. They're like, "Oh my God, the red carpet, blah blah." I'm like, you know what, man? Like, relax, just relax. And I don't know,
Let
man.
people have their fun.
This sports weekend was, I don't know. It just seemed like it was one of those weekends where world and sports collide again, which I always try to make it do in talk radio. I'm a big, as you know, right? This snuck up on you. Real life sports thing. Real life sports. Where's the intersection?
It's kind of a good way to come full
Nine-
circle.
nine-
with
90th
this
and
whole
Dodge.
conversation we just had is bringing your everyday life to sports.
It's just, I was listening to Max post game after the Villanova game, and at some point, you just have to tip your cap, right? Job well done, good and faithful servant. I mean, now you can't go 16 minutes of 19 minutes of game time and not make a three, right? But, dude, Dixon he came to play.
He
right?
balled.
It's just, Minnesota. How nervous were you playing that 7.5 for Nebraska? I know you were. Don't worry, they had your back.
Exactly. We'll get into college basketball talk next, and we'll set up the show too. Stick with us.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hale Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back to the cooking show here on 590 ESPN Radio, because we like to cook up not only our general thoughts, but sports topics as well. And that's how it kind of started. It was more of the, hey, weekend things. What'd you do? Where'd you go?
Little
How does it
Heinz
tie back
57.
into what you guys are trying to accomplish? And, in a lot of ways, I feel like we came full circle and landed the plane well from that initial talk of Waffle Crisp and Hostess to inside DB's mom's kitchen.
I just think it's wild. It just reminds me of like a grocery store. I mean, that's what the kids think it is.
Oh, grandma's place is
Yeah.
the place to get the good stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like all grandma's places are like that, though.
Need paper towels? She's got 2,000. You need foil? She has 60. You need toilet paper? She has 226
My
million
grandma has
rolls.
a ton of things in her basement. Ton of things. I'm like, how many spoons do you need? But you know why she has all that stuff? Well, for one, low key, you could think that she's a little bit of a hoarder when it comes to certain like tangible items, but it's a great so-called free yard sale for all of the grandchildren to come over and be like, hey, I need a toaster. Grandma's got 4.
It all started because my kiddo played on Creighton's campus at the fitness center, which puts me right next to Pettit's. My mom has an affinity for apple fritters. So I called and I said, hey, do you want me to run you any donuts out? Like, I'm right here. I always say by the good one, the original downtown location. I probably shouldn't say that. Sorry, Pettit's. And she likes apple fritters, so I ran her out some donuts. And then hour and 45 minutes later, just chilling. I'm counting stuff in her kitchen. But anyway, man, I wanted to watch because usually there's a good 11 o'clock game on, and yesterday I wasn't really vibing early with what was going on in college basketball. It didn't get good until late. And by the way, I'm pretty disappointed in Northwestern and Maryland too, by the way, because I need Northwestern to win some meaningful games on the road. Now, I don't really need, but it would be nice because I kind of worry about the Big Ten and postseason play. But by the way, did you set your alarm for Dylan Raiola's announcement?
I did not.
Why?
I know a few people that did.
Why didn't you set it?
Because I knew what was going to happen. I knew what was going to come. There was no way that he was announcing where he's going.
But have you?
that
Hey,
account.
listen. Have you seen all the crystal balls? Though
I have seen the crystal balls. I have seen.
Are you a
similar
believer?
posts before.
Are you a believer
in Dylan Raiola coming?
Yeah.
I told you for the longest time that I wasn't, but I'll tell you what. This is what I thought about when Husker Nation was chanting his name at PBA over the weekend. I thought one of like 4 things here. The first that I thought about was, gosh, if I'm in Dylan Raiola's head, this state loves themselves some Huskers. And then
it just dawned on you.
No. From the stance of, hey, even when the program is
not very good,
they just sold out a crowd against the worst team in the Big Ten. Okay. And then, it's like, okay, what a turnaround this basketball program is undergoing. And then it's like, man, if these fans are excited about 4 straight in basketball, just think of what I could accomplish on the football field in front of 90,000 people. And like, how crazy would it be? Multiplying 15,000 inside PBA,
Times
putting
6.
them inside of Memorial Stadium. Like, I could see myself there. You know, him just being around
Mhm.
Nebraska almost makes me think that because things are on a high right now, it's a little bit contagious when it comes to the energy he's picking up on. So I will sway my viewpoint from an initial thought
The recency
of
bias.
me saying, hey, he'd rather go to a contender, which I still think is a good possibility. Don't buy in totally. But I also don't think he's completely playing Husker Nation by showing up to things like this just to come to Nebraska to see his uncle.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing though. Why do you think he didn't originally tell people he was coming though?
I don't think he
What if he just really wanted to come see his uncle and take in the atmosphere?
and I don't doubt that one bit, but you know,
Because wouldn't you have said, and there was all this consternation back and forth. I don't want to get into that because the whole recruiting angle of breaking news drives me crazy. But I have to learn to play both sides. I have to understand people have a job to do, and I have to respect that. Or I need to respect. I don't have to. I need to respect that. But at the end of the day, I always pit it against the practicality of going through this, having seen it. I look at these rankings and I know I have thoughts, and I'm like, oh God, here we go. But yeah, so I didn't want to get into all the back and forth of who should have reported what and who did know what, because I think it's at some point, man, just knowing a little bit about the family, I think they kind of did just want to fly in and
well, they keep to themselves
mind their
in a
own
lot of
business.
cases. If you look at Dylan's Twitter page, he
Oh,
doesn't say a
not a
thing
thing
on social
Yeah.
media. So that's why I'm not overly shocked that nobody knew that he was coming. And I'm also not shocked that they're sitting around bragging about it because they don't have to.
Mhm.
They don't have to. If people discover that he's there, they discover that he's there. If they don't, they don't. That doesn't bother him one bit. But don't leave anything to chance with Husker Nation. They will find you.
Well,
They will see you.
I thought it was interesting so I woke up, was it Friday morning, to just a cryptic question was, did I know that Rayola was on a flight last night? I was like, what? Weird. Like, you're on a plane coming to Nebraska. Somebody on that flight is going to recognize you, right? So you're only going to be able to do that for so long. I just think the intent wasn't to say, "Hey, here I'm coming." I think he just wanted to come in, kind of soak it up. Now you're not going to be able to go to a basketball game, and at PBA as the #1 ranked player in the country,
And fly under the
in
radar.
and slide in and slide out. But at that point, I mean, the cat had been out of the bag for 24 hours. So you soak it up and you take it for what it's worth.
Right. Yeah, I didn't look too much into his visit outside of the fact of his unofficial visit, I should say. Outside of the fact that, you're right. He was probably just taking in some good basketball. He wanted to watch the Huskers in person.
I think you want to. Plus, he's heard, right? Like you want to. He's just smart. Like you want to see the whole environment, right? You want to take a walk around campus. You want to see it on a quote unquote off day, a non football weekend, because it has to be something over time that you got to think that you could do day in, day out. Because the more that I'm around this, and it's been, I don't know, almost 30 years of being around it, I just think wherever your feet land has to be someplace you want to be, because everything else gets more difficult than actually just physically being in a certain spot. You got to be in a good headspace. You got to feel some comfort. You got to feel some safety. College is hard, especially when you play it at when you're going to play it at that high of a level. It's extremely difficult.
I'll tell you
And-
what, too. You talk about a kid that just shows up on campus just to see it for him. the more times he makes his way to Nebraska, the more times he's going to want to stay in this location.
Yeah, and I
it's
think
going to make him feel like he belongs here more and more. He's going to end with that want to come back more and more and more. That's just kind of how you condition yourself when you show up to a place and you keep showing up to that one place.
Keep showing up. Is that my T-shirt today? No, I have a keep showing up T-shirt. That's funny why you say that. I ordered it online. Keep
$40?
showing up, keep showing up. No, it was only 20.
Ooh, half off.
Yeah, Jenna Fisher. I started these T-shirts. She covers basketball in the digital market, and she has this line. Her mom had taken her life some years ago, and so she kind of branded this "Keep Showing Up." Keep showing up, keep showing up. And I was like, I need that. But anyway, another side note of maximizing in the day. I'll try not to keep coming back to that, but I might because it's what's on my heart.
Dylan.
We'll
That's what he's going home
We'll
with.
talk about that when we come back to keep showing up. Did we set the lineup yet?
Not yet.
Goodness gracious.
That's what we do.
Man.
We're all over the place. But we're happy to have you with us, and we hope that you stay with us.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hale Varsity Radio.
Butler makes it. 2-point lead. 3 seconds left. No timeouts. Neal inbounds. Desmond Cambridge. Oh! He got it! He won it! Arizona State has done it!
Quinterly now down the lane. Quinterly now back out. Miller catch and shoot 3. And the lid came off. Cleveland for the win. It's good! Matthew Cleveland stuns Miami.
What a weekend it was in college basketball. We are talking to C.L. Brown right now. We'll get into conversation with Sam McKewon right around 8 o'clock. At 8:30, we will get back into maybe a little bit of baseball over the weekend, and then we'll get back to Nebraska football and recruiting toward the back end of the show. But as we welcome in C.L. Brown now to the show, he's the UNC beat writer for the News and Observer. C.L., good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, man. Welcome back. You are in the middle of travel, huh? I can hear the airport.
Yeah, I'm going through Atlanta, so I'm gonna get to a quiet space in 1 second.
Hey, how about this, CO? What better typifies the ACC than what happened this past weekend with Carolina over Virginia? Florida State goes to Coral Gables and gets Miami. Is there anything more ACC than the topsy-turviness of what happened this weekend? You just never know.
Yeah, and what's funny is I've heard a lot of spins from the coaches to talk about the competitiveness of the conference, but that still doesn't make it good. You know, like there's a lot of pretty average basketball teams in the league this year. It's another down league as far as the talent as well, which it just kind of lends to games like we had this weekend where you know, you never know what's going to happen.
Not too long ago, two blue bloods, Kentucky and UNC, were both at serious risk for missing the NCAA tournament. Kentucky has lately sweetened their path by compiling wins, but UNC only has Virginia to talk about. How much work do the Tar Heels need to do, in your opinion, to find a way into the 68?
Well, I think first they can't lose tonight. You know, Florida State would be a horrible loss on their resume, and right now they don't have any bad losses. All of their losses are in the top two quads in the net rankings. And then I think they got to get Duke at home, you know, just to feel with a little bit more comfortable going into the ACC tournament. But I imagine they would probably end up having some work to do once the ACC tournament comes around too. Like they definitely couldn't afford a first round loss, and they're going to be playing on Wednesday because they're, you know, not going to finish high enough to earn a double bye in the tournament. So I would say if they get to the semifinals of the ACC tournament, they're in for sure. But they at the very least, they cannot afford any bad losses, you know, en route to Selection Sunday.
See, how do you explain Miami? I like Wong and company. They can score. They do. Carolina. Remember, I'm the unabashed, diehard Tar Heels fan here. I watch the ACC up and down. How do you explain their inconsistency? Because when they're going, they remind me a little bit of a team like Illinois, who everybody seems to love in the Big Ten, when they say, well, if they're hitting on all cylinders, then they fill in the blank. I kind of feel like Miami is like that.
Yeah, I think Miami's been a little bit more consistent than that. I would point to the reason why they lost, you know, this Florida State game was because, you know, they won the first meeting in Tallahassee by 23 points or something. And so then they're up 25 in this game, and they thought they could just put it on cruise control, especially given, you know, what kind of year it's been for Florida State this year. And it just, you know, Florida State just snuck up on them. But I really like Miami, like you say, too. And I think for my money right now, I think they're the best team in the ACC. I know Pitt is in first place right now and everything, but I still would give that nod to Miami, especially when the NCAA tournament comes around. I think they could be another, you know, have another Elite Eight run in them.
Speak to Pitt. Do you think they're a product of good luck and maybe a little bit of easy schedule while other big juggernauts are kind of on the tailwind? Or do you think they're actually as good as they are being the top spot right now in the ACC?
Well, I think they're tough. I mean, they have a bunch of experienced guys, a bunch of older guys, 24, 25, even in some cases. And it took them a while. They took some bad losses early too. But once they kind of got into the flow of Jeff Capel's system there, they're a team that I wouldn't want to play against either. I think they got away, they only got Virginia at home. They only had Duke once, and that was in Cameron. But they had Carolina twice. So it hadn't been just, a total skate schedule. But that's what I hate about these unbalanced schedules in these conferences, because you never really can tell if it's just somebody coming up off of a bad schedule or if they're really good. But I think Pitt is legit. As a matter of fact, I ranked them for the first time this week. This morning, I'll see, when the actual poll comes out later this afternoon, we'll see if they made the actual poll. But I have them in there for the first time.
CL, I was just having this conversation after one of the high school basketball games with a Dookie fan, and he coaches, he loves the sport, he loves Duke, and I said, I have to admit, man, even as a Carolina guy, that's one team that is trending in the right direction, in my opinion. I think they've won 3 or 4 in a row. They're healthy. It seems like they have their rotation under control, man. What do you think Duke's ceiling is, even though they've been so bad in quad one games?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think they are, now the 4 games they've won, they've been against teams they should beat.
Correct.
So I don't put a whole lot in that, but I do believe that they are starting to all come together. They are finally healthy. Derek Whitehead is shooting, he's shooting at a high clip from 3 now, and that's kind of what they didn't have earlier in the season, a consistent outside shooter. And I like Jeremy Roach, what he's doing. He brings that stability. Obviously, March is all about guard play, and, to have an experienced point guard like him, they could do big things. I still want to see what happens in the regular season finale when they have to come to Chapel Hill. They won the first meeting, obviously, with Carolina, but that game was tied, with 3:57 left. And Carolina just didn't make any plays in that, or didn't make any shots for that matter, to close out the game. But I want to see what happens that game for me to be a true believer in what Duke is doing. But right now they are definitely trending in the right direction.
CL Brown, UNC beat writer for the News and Observer, on the phone with us now at CL Brown Hoops on Twitter. CL, Saturday felt like a day where you could tweet out this is February instead of this is March. A lot of upsets, a lot of buzzer beaters. What did you take away most from this past weekend? Was it the Fran McCaffrey stare down? Was it the extracurriculars after Xavier and Seton Hall?
Fran is wild and out.
Hey, I don't understand, CL. Like, why does he get a pass?
You're right. He shouldn't. At this point, in 2023, his tirades and outbursts, I just don't think there's a place for that anymore. Because it's basketball, man. We're having fun. People make a living off of this game, and I just think he needs to. The school needs to tighten its rein or something. I don't know, but. My take out of the weekend, I think Purdue, which has been number 1 longer than any other team this season. I think they peaked too early.
Agreed.
And they've lost. I think it's 4 out of their last 6. I think it is, including getting swept by Indiana. I don't think they're going to have a long run come tournament time, and especially because they have a young backcourt. So I think there's a red flag there with Purdue. Trying to think of the other big game from this weekend. I like what Baylor is doing.
Arizona State, maybe.
I know they. Yeah. Arizona State probably played their way into the tournament with that last second win at Arizona. And Arizona's had some troubling losses too. Mine kind of mind-boggling loss to Washington State at home. That loss to Arizona State was at home. I think Baylor is one of the teams I'm probably going to put a lot of chips on come tournament time. I think they're also headed in the right direction.
See, I'm going to get you out of here on this. And I joked a couple weeks ago, because I've been on kind of the Northwestern hype train in basketball. And I said, but I'm a Carolina fan. And I said, is there any coincidence Pete Nance leaves, Northwestern wins, Pete Nance gets to Chapel Hill, the shot selection still drives me crazy. And I know Caleb Love is the popular whipping boy. He drives me crazy too. But how critical is it for a guy like Nance when he's making shots and engaged? It just seems like that team plays different.
It changes the whole complexion because right now they haven't had a consistent outside shooter. We saw what he did, Saturday against Virginia. It opens up everything inside, either for Armando to get post touches or for the guards to drive. And you can't sag inside. Like that game against Miami in the first half, Carolina was getting to the rim, but they weren't making any outside shots. So when Miami switched up their defense and basically dared them to shoot outside and Carolina couldn't hit anything, they walk out of Chapel Hill with an easy win. So if Nance can stay engaged like that offensively, I think Carolina, they have some upside still. We know they have talent and experience, so it might not be an easy out come NCAA time.
CL Brown, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much and safe travels.
All right, appreciate you. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, CL.
Good conversation about college hoops. Maybe some help for you when you're filling out your brackets here in a couple of weeks. We're talking Sam McKewon next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. That kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Top of the hour here on Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. And as we do on every Monday morning, we talk to Sam McKewon, sports editor and Nebraska columnist for the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. Sam, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good. I need the weather report. How are we doing? Are we clearing up in the capital city, or what's going on? The sun's starting to break through a little here in Omaha.
The sun has completely broken through in Lincoln. It's a beautiful morning.
It's always a good start.
School drop-off went okay?
It did, for once.
I'm sure this weekend, too, helps make today such a beautiful morning in the state of Nebraska, because it seemed like the Huskers on all fronts had something positive going for them this weekend.
Right there.
They did. Yeah, they did. They had a good one. Nebraska, well, both the basketball teams won as expected, but, you can't, with Nebraska basketball, you don't always know if you're going to get what you expect. So that was good. And then Dylan Raiola hit town over the weekend, went to a basketball game. Obviously, that's a positive development for Husker football. And then the volleyball announcement on Friday, which is a cool thing. And it'll be an interesting experience. They'll set the record. I think the logistics will be interesting for that whole thing, and they'll probably be glad they do it once, but they will get the record, and it'll be done.
Sam, let me just stay right there just for a quick second. Why do you think the timing was now for Nebraska women's volleyball to make that announcement?
Well, I think it had. I mean, there's some logistical things that I think need to get ironed out. But I think they wanted to put it on the calendar. I think they're still working on the concert. You can't call a guy up, 3 weeks before a concert and hey, you want to come play a concert? So I think there's some things to work through there. Although I have a pretty good idea of who it'll be. I think it's to get out in front of a lot of different things. And you got recruiting season coming up. Creighton volleyball got a commit last night. But this is it. I mean, this is recruiting season. This is, you're going to start seeing commits probably more in May and June and July is when a lot of them make their final decisions. But, you're going to have, the top players in the country making decisions. And you better believe that Wisconsin sells that they're the best team in the Big Ten. And they are the best team in the Big Ten right now.
Mm-hmm.
You can't sugarcoat that. They beat Nebraska 10 times in a row. So there's nothing to say about that. It's reality. But Nebraska volleyball is a cultural icon in ways that Wisconsin is not yet. And I think this conversation is part of that. There was a Wisconsin coach had pretty robust response. Certainly it had his wheels turning a little bit. he had a lot to say about it. And so obviously there's a rivalry here now. It's an interesting rivalry. I don't think I don't think it's like a hot war, so to speak. And I'm not trying to diminish what's going on around the world, but it's not hot-blooded the way that Nebraska-Iowa football clearly is now. But it's more of a, the top two programs in the Big Ten and two of the top 4 or 5 in the country, kind of looking at each other from across the way and kind of marking each other. So, Wisconsin will not have any part of this record after August 30th. They won't have the postseason. They won't have the regular season, and they probably will never get it again because rest assured, they're not going to get 50,000 people at Camp Randall to watch a volleyball match.
Hey, Sam, as you very well probably remember, early on when Nebraska was kind of courting Coach Frost, and there was that stretch, and I had a couple of segments where I talked openly about it being an extremely difficult decision, right? I talked about things that he has to consider, going from Orlando to Lincoln, and golfing versus not golfing, and a new wife, and the fishbowl. And I remember the initial pushback. It was, oh man, he's kind of a hater, he's jealous. And I'd say, actually I've talked to him, I kind of know the concerns, right? Then it comes out a couple years later, hey, or not a year later, the 11th and a half hour, there was some deciding he had to do, like, ooh, am I really going to make this leap? And on the heels of that, I asked this question: do you think that the Raiolas understand, kind of comprehend what comes with the potential of coming to Lincoln, kind of giving that Savior brand a legacy, being the number 1 ranked player in the class, coming back home potentially? Do you think that is an issue for this family?
That's a great question. Let's just take it because I think each person has specific personalities, and so I don't want to impose on that family.
And they're understood. Understood.
The self-doubt that Scott Frost, I think, battles. Best way to put it. I don't want to impose that on them because, I don't know.
It's fair.
Right? I think that's hard to measure. But really, really interesting question. I think one of the things about Dylan that's interesting is that he may be the number 1 player in the country, but kind of like Pat Mahomes, although Pat wasn't, a 5-star quarterback, his dad is a professional athlete and will probably have a little bit of Ben there does that to him, right? It's not going to be, they're not going to get stars in their eyes. And I think and this isn't true of you, but I'm sure you've seen in-state recruits who their parents, they weren't athletes. They got stars in their eyes a little bit when this stuff happens. It's not going to happen with them.
That's a fantastic point too, by the way.
Donovan's a hard person to read, in a press conference, but he doesn't strike me as somebody who would ever, kiss his nephew's rear end for 9 seconds if he didn't think he should. So, I mean, I have an odd respect for, I don't really know Donovan Raiola, but I have a respect for him. I think he would, he'd keep his nephew very accountable, and I think his dad would too. I do think there is one of the things that, he has to weigh out and consider is, okay, you want to play in the NFL. If that's the ultimate goal, very quickly, you're going to have to make honest assessments about, do I get to the first round, playing at Nebraska, and how does that correlate? And Matt Rule's going to have, I'm sure, a terrific plan for him. And he's going to be able to say, hey, I took these other 2 guys and got them to the NFL, and they weren't going to play on the kind of stage you'll play on. But if you look at the kids that have come out of the Big Ten and are on our first round draft picks, there haven't been that many. Most of them have been at Ohio State, where Dylan Raiola doesn't want to go because he decommitted from there. And most of them are, and the reason those quarterbacks at Ohio State went in the first round was because of the receivers around. Justin Fields, who I've gotten to know as a player quite well, is not. He greatly benefited from maybe the greatest receiving core in college football history. He greatly benefited from having Olave and Wilson and Jamison Williams and unbelievable players. And so, I think that's something that Raila has to consider. Like if the NFL is the ultimate goal, then, and you want to be a first round pick, can you go 8-4, 9-3, 9-3, 10-2, and do all the things you want to do? Justin Herbert was able to do that at Oregon, but I think that's part of the assessment. Because if he goes to USC, it really, and I'm not trying to say, he's going to go there and he would be really, really successful, and he's going to be a first pick. He's going to be a first pick because Lincoln Riley will get him there. That's just how it goes. I'm very familiar with Baker Mayfield too because my wife's a Browns fan. There's things Baker Mayfield didn't learn in college, and either Lincoln Riley didn't teach him or whatever. But he was still the first pick in the NFL draft, and Kyler Murray was still the first pick in the NFL draft, and Caleb Williams, who's better than both of them, will be the first pick in the NFL draft. And so I think that's the dividing line. If Dillon goes to LA, he doesn't have to worry about being the spotlight there. LeBron James will take care of that for him. But in Lincoln, he would be, and you've got to be able to accept that. And then you also have to assess, the NFL thing. But as far as a college experience, he would have an extraordinary college experience at Nebraska. I think they would be a better football team because he's here. And I think he would attract good players around him. And I think they would win games. Now, would they win 12 games? I don't know. That's a hard dividing line to figure out. I don't know if they'd win 12, but I think they'd win 9. And you got to feel comfortable that, the NFL is going to acknowledge that winning 9 is worthy of being the first pick in the draft.
He obviously enjoyed the attention when he was at PBA. Crowd chanting his name, stands up, gives them a little bit of some good love there, throwing the bones. But as he's taking in that game, I prompted this morning. What do you think he was thinking about most as he sat in that chair watching a state that loves themselves some Huskers? Was it, hey, the turnaround of this basketball program is undergoing and the support that they are still getting at their stage? Was it hey, man, just think of what I could bring to football if this is what the fan base does for basketball, multiply 15K to by 6 and get 90K at Memorial Stadium? Like, what do you honestly think he was thinking about in that chair? Because we were talking and we're like, man, he just keeps showing up. You keep showing up, and at some point you're going to keep coming back wanting more. And Nebraska's the only school that can do that for him right now.
Oh, I probably just thought it was fun. I think those sort of meta narratives that you're talking about are probably things that are presented to him by other people, adults. But he probably just thought, oh, this is fun. And probably had a good time. And, again, I think if it were up to, the family, he would probably commit potentially very soon. I think it's going to be his decision. It's just, it's just a lot. It's probably going to be a lot to process because, again, if he were to commit to Nebraska, well, the next 9 months would be about the most fun he's ever had. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun because he'll be helping to get players to Nebraska, and he'll be the star player and the star recruit, and he'll be the story, and he won't have to play any football in order to prove it. So, he'll have a heck of a lot of fun. If he commits to USC, well, everybody at USC is going to be focusing on the quarterback who's already there, and Georgia will just shrug. Okay, that's fine. Did we get the 5-star defensive lineman that won us national titles? We did. Good. That's what'll happen. So that's part of the thing he's probably got to work through. Is that Nebraska is the only one that can provide the pre-signing experience that he would get. But again, I think it probably just comes down to what kind of experience you want. It's more like a 20-year decision. You know, maybe it's a 4-year decision, but it's really a 20-year call. And I've already written, I would, you know, this is just me as an opinion maker. I wouldn't go to Georgia. I don't think you have to. And I'm not even sure that that's, you know, where you'd want to go. But I think USC is awfully interesting, and so is Nebraska for different reasons. And I think, you know, it's going to be a challenge to pick between those two options. It's going to be really interesting. If Lincoln Riley were still at Oklahoma, I would favor Nebraska pretty heavily. But USC is a different deal, and it's LA, and it's you know, Heisman trophies and first round picks, and so Nebraska's going to have, Matt Rule's going to have to present a plan that says, hey, we can make your individual dreams come true while you bring this team back to glory.
I'm gonna try to sneak into. I still want to get to that fantastic piece with Derek Walker. Amy and the collab. I mean, it was an amazing read. But let me finish. Let me ask one more Nebraska football one. There's a few of you guys that I just really trust, that I consider like kind of psych peers that understand complicated people. Dirk was in that scope. You're in that scope. So let me ask you this. When you look and listen to Matt Rule, has there been a coach that you remember as a head coach that was as a quick level thinker on his feet and could discern and size up responses as smoothly or as quickly as Coach Rule?
Not that I've covered.
Isn't it? It's so it's not just me, right? Because I continue to be blown away by his ability as an orator. And it's not just being a good speaker, Sam. It's processing the information that's asked of him in warp speed, and he pits it against like who he is as a person. Like it's unbelievable in my opinion.
Yeah, he processes quickly. I think he's got a pretty good sense of people. You know, I suspect that Matt's an external processor, and when I say that, what I mean is that he works out problems by talking about them out loud with people that he's close to, or people that, you know, are in his sphere, whether it's his family or his fellow coaches. And a lot of times, if you're an external processor, you're processing answers as you're receiving questions, and it becomes very habitual for you. That's me. To be able to kind of work through what you want to say and be able to filter that through a couple of different lenses pretty quickly. That usually comes with somebody who's pretty good with public speaking. You know, and for example, I don't think Scott Frost was an external processor like that. I think it wasn't quite like that. And so I think, you know, Rule's able to hold two ideas up and maybe doesn't agree with either one of them fully and kind of assess them both and can understand other people. So I think that's a gift. Yeah, that's a talent that he has. You know, I think what'll be interesting in this job is I think he's so good on front ends of things, of like trying to figure out, okay, so here are the issues, here are the things that I have to address and resolve. Here's how we turn this around. And unlike the Carolina Panthers, I'll have total authority to do that. Like, I won't have to ask anybody, and there isn't some person over here that's, you know, guarding their job like that, like a general manager. So I think he's really good off the front end of like assessing issues, fixing that thing, and making it better. The question is going to be, after 4 or 5 years at Nebraska, let's say he does turn it around here, does he get bored? And does he want to see the thing? You know, it's one thing to be able to turn it, and then it's another to keep it where it is, and then do the battle that you're going to have to do against Ohio State and USC and Michigan for decades to come. That wears people out, you know, that can wear people out, and that'll be the thing that I think will be interesting to watch. But no, he's very, very good off the front end of being able to process what you're asking. When, you know, his understanding of what's gone wrong here, and you understand what I'm saying when I say that, his understanding of what's gone wrong here at Nebraska for many years, is actually pretty good. He's got a pretty good grasp of it.
It's unbelievable. I
And that's
agree.
not
I
just
agree
what
with you.
happened the last 4 years. That he was able to, in talking to him kind of off the record, like his ability to synthesize the information and understand the 20-year issue is pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm glad that somebody downloaded into him some good things, because I think he understands the dynamics at play here and does want to try to fix the dynamics at play. And it's larger than Scott. Goodness gracious, it's much larger than Scott. And it's larger than Sean Eichhorst, which are the two people that you'll hear a lot about, even out and about still. And it's larger than both of those people. And so I think he understands that.
Well, another home run so far for Sam McKewon in this segment. Sam, let me get you out of here in this, because it was a great piece. And I liked how everything was kind of intertwined with Tominaga and his parents coming back and Nebraska's weekend. And you even found a way to get in my favorite, Jazz Shelley, and the totality of the piece. But I want to focus on.
Yeah, Amy did a great job.
She's hilarious too. And anyway, 25 years old, man, mature, and his authenticity to say, hey, listen, you know what? I stopped caring. I remember being on a plane, my first trip to West Lafayette, and I was talking to some folks during the broadcast, and I was like, why, if I'm D. Walker, would I come back for another year if this is how I was going to start my season? I remember saying that out loud. I'm like, why would you come back for that, right? If you're going to act like this. And he addresses it. He talks about it. And it's part of Nebraska basketball's DNA for this season. Like, how crucial or undersold even is that his maturation and his growth kind of has his fingerprints all over this basketball team.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of why they're successful, is that, Derek freely admits that he's, an emotional person. And so, like, his responses to certain situations may vary based on whether things are going favorably or not on the court. And Hoiberg knows that, I think. I think, but his awareness of that allows, I think, his teammates to appreciate the best parts of him and then embrace the parts that can be very difficult. Sometimes he can give a teammate a cold shoulder for a couple minutes. He talked about that in a senior day press conference. Like, and Sam Griesel was like, the first time that happened, I was like, okay, and like, it's different. But then, Derek also has a very warm, giving, and sort of deeply generous emotional side too. And that's uncommon with people who are emotional. They're generous, and then they can also use those emotions to take things away. And so, Amy did a great job. So Amy's a really, really good interviewer. She has the same talent that Dirk has to be able to get out of people what they probably didn't expect to be giving when they go into the interview. And that's part of her talent and her gift, is that she's able to kind of get people to talk and go places that they hadn't expected to go. And I think when Derek Walker walked into that interview, I don't know that he anticipated talking about all those things, but after an hour of talking to Amy at PBA, that's what comes out of it. And I think it was a really good story. That's part of why she is who she is. She's good at what she does. And it was a good story. And you always got to thank the subject, Derek, for being open and transparent, but it's the relationship that the reporter is able to strike in a very short amount of time that makes the piece what it is.
She can be disarming and straightforward at the same time. Like, even when we're talking in like the press box, I was like, ooh. I was like, oh, that was kind of cool that she at least asked like that. Like, I can respect that. You know what? She has some gifts. Oh, yeah. She has some gifts.
She's very talented.
Hey,
talk to her too. Have her on the show.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we will. And I guarantee you, yeah. Consider that one done for sure.
We let our guests tell us who to book next. It's happened once, twice, maybe 3 times now. So, Sam, we appreciate you.
You can talk about that story way better than I can, but I can. I mean, I thought it was a great one. Yeah.
Appreciate it, Sam.
Sam, thanks so much. We'll talk again next week.
Take care. Bye.
Sports editor and Nebraska columnist for the Omaha World-Herald and Husker Extra. That's Sam McKewon, SW McKewon, OWH on Twitter.
It's like that you were laughing at me out loud during that interview. you make fun of me for processing out loud all the time. And,
No, never.
and I was
never once have
you're
I
like,
ever made
you're
fun
like,
of you.
you're like, I love how you're just like processing the situation. You're like walking through it in your head out loud.
That's not making fun of you. That's just being observant.
That's totally how. Like I'm a total external
Your
processor.
question about Dylan Raiola and coming up with the expectation.
We
got to
get to that.
Your best questions that you've ever asked.
We got to get to that.
Least. Well, we can, but we should talk basketball first. That's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Back to the show, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved, it's Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. He's Damon Benning. I'm Andrew Rogers, and we are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Catch us wherever you are right now, whether that's on the radio, 590 ESPN Omaha. We are live on Twitter, live on YouTube. If you want to catch us in the flesh, like we're talking to you, we have our cameras live, DB, even though we had some maybe a little rough start to the show with your camera. You guys have figured it out. Your
I didn't want the
relationship is
FaceTime
back.
camera.
I get it.
I wanted the.
I get it. You don't want the chin camera.
Is it Logitech or Logitech? Logitech? Is it Logitech?
Your guess is as good as mine.
It's Logitech.
Thank you. I wanted the Logitech camera, not the FaceTime camera, and it wouldn't register.
And I get it. I get it.
So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna shut the whole dang thing down and start over, which means you had to deal with my ugly mug for a good 6
Well,
minutes.
I'll tell
Probably
you-
the best 6 minutes of your life, isn't it? I know.
No,
it's fine.
I can't get away from it. Hey, speaking of starting over and starting fresh, maybe resetting.
I used to like you. That was
that's
cool.
That's what Nebraska did halfway through this season. And on the back end of that interview with Sam, you kind of talked about that with Derek Walker and returning and answering his own question or your question of why did you return? And it's for moments like this and where they're at in the season, overcoming adversity and being a team that is competing right now for the NIT, and in a small majority of people's minds, maybe it's gotten a little bit bigger.
Kevin Suits,
an NCAA tournament bid, if they can show some life in the Big Ten conference tournament.
I want to read you this little blurb from
that piece.
Amy's piece. Just think about this for a second. Okay. It says Derek Walker is in a class all his own. He's at the age of 25, the last man standing from Fred Hoiberg's first season in 2019. He's also the only one left from 2020. Quote, I've seen a lot of change. I've had a new team, Walker said. I've had new teammates every year. We have a completely new staff. We have a whole new AD. Football coaches are new. I've seen a lot. Been through a lot of it myself, on top of all the changes. People don't think about that. Me, Luca, and Fred are the only ones that have been here since he got the job. That's 3 people in 4 years. Hoiberg added. It seems like 30 years ago when Derek got here. It's crazy to think back. Just everything that we've been through, just the 3 of us. I'm like, how uncomfortable would you be if you were presented with that scenario? Over those critical formative years, maturing into an adult from 19 to 25, with those many variables,
It'd be easier to leave.
Right?
It'd be easier just to say, man, is this really worth the time, the stress, the energy? It'd be easier to go.
Do you know how many days in between his last game at Tennessee in 2019 and his first game played at Nebraska? 658.
Wow.
658. What could you endure for 2 years? This has just so when she's giving this numbers and perspective, then I watch him play. I'm like, wow, good on you. Good on you.
Staying with the course.
I just don't know. Like, and I get it, man. Okay, DB, hindsight is 2020. I guarantee you that is something I could not have done.
Well, because there's not always greener pasture.
Man, I struggled in 3 months, 90 days from the time I got to campus to where it seemed like I wasn't going to get to play baseball, to where I thought, like, why are we lockering in this concrete room with one singular urinal and no doors on the bathroom stall? This is not what I signed up for. 90 days in. Hey, Dad, you know what? I don't think this is for me, man. I'm ready to go. Oh, is that right? That's cool. You can quit. Just can't come home. Think I'll stay.
Hey, I think I'm going to stand next to a bunch of people and pee.
600 and you kind of laugh. I had never ever is defecated the word in front of anyone. There were no doors on the stall. Like so we joke about that now, especially the former guys. Right? We joke, we laugh. But that was some of the vulnerability. Sounds weird in terms of crossing over into camaraderie. I'm dead serious. In this weird emotional kind of way. It was things like that. Now, it wasn't by design. I just think it was an old facility over there. But ask guys about that. No doors, no bathroom doors. One singular urinal, concrete floors, like it builds or reveals, I should say, character. D-Walk went 658 days without being able to play a meaningful college basketball game when he's in a new city to play college basketball. I admire it, man. Like, I just admire, and he was so honest. He's like, you know what? I stopped caring. These depressive bouts I was going through, I just simply stopped caring. And then to see him come out of the back end, I'm like, go D-Walk, go Nebraska. I mean, we'd been saying that, but it's no coincidence. He's got some high love, high resolve guys. Griesel, Tominaga, D-Walk. Now, there happens to be their 3 best players, but they've all got their own personal journey to tell on why they are what they are.
And they're not even
they
close
all
to the same.
Right? They all got that resolve story. You just don't want to have to go through it.
And
that seasoning.
Let's be real. That story doesn't work all too much.
Oh, man.
When you get the guy that, took his own course and then landed here, and you get another guy that took his own course, if they're not relatable, it doesn't work a lot. I remember covering games at Briarcliff over in Sioux City, and the coach would always grab the guy that was either, he had a run-in with the law, and now he's back here because he went from D1 to this school. I know another guy that was like, hey, I didn't get to play at all at this university, so I'm going to come over here because I know I can play here. It didn't work. It didn't mesh the people that he brought there. Now it's more guys you're dealing with, but still it didn't work. Mm-hmm. It is rare that you take 3 guys with different stories, bring them to one location, and they are able to put something together. It's very rare to do that.
I just think if there's a number one ingredient, I just think either perseverance or resolve. And if you want to play semantics police and differentiate between the two, that's probably my first ingredient that I'm starting with in the lab. There just is. I mean, there's such a fine line in terms of talent level. These are older guys in Nebraska's past history, but there's such a fine line between, Brian Knuckles, D'Angelo Evans, and Amon Green in terms of physical traits. Everybody's got a certain physical baseline. It's the resolve. It's staying power. Haven't you worked with like lots of talented people you'd think, and you're like, man, they seem to have it all, except for when you just put pedal to the metal and you got to kind of go. It's like, oh, where'd you go? It's just, I'm always going to take the resolve. That's why I'm a huge fan of like Anthony, of Rizak. Because he's a grinder and he's a winner. And ultimately, those two things are going to be the number one thing to give you an opportunity to be successful. I don't care what it is.
Mhm.
It's seldom just talent alone. So, and I was reading this article and I was like, number one, I got a chance to know Amy over the last, I don't know, year and some change. And there's sometimes like she'll joke with me or she'll say something and it doesn't, it's not uncomfortable isn't the word, but it's like, oh man, she just went there. And it's very, very quick on her feet. Has that kind of sense of humor, but it's in this weird sort of way. It's disarming. So to get this information, and I would say this to people like Jessica Cootie. It's like sometimes I think those people take their talents to get people to say things during interviews for granted, but it's something to it when you're having sit downs one on one with people. A lot of times, man, you got to give credit to the people that get people to go there.
Sure do.
Because not everybody does it. You know what I mean? I thought it was fantastic. It was an amazing piece.
And it's a good thought. It's like a good thing. It's a crazy thing to think about whenever you assess this group.
658 days.
Assess that man, to be completely honest. It's all about will at the end of the day. If you have the will to be there,
hang in there.
You can push towards success. Let's change gears. We'll talk baseball next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Dramatic intro for some dramatic events. Baseball over the weekend for the Huskers, for the team here in Omaha at UNO, and the Creighton Blue Jays. All three back on the diamond. But before we get into that conversation, let me take a drink of the official coffee of Coffee and Cream. Coffee from the Beanery. Very tasty. I went to the Beanery again on Sunday after church, as I do every weekend, and I got a brown sugar cinnamon latte this time around. And
Whoa.
pretty good. Pretty dang tasty because
Waffles.
you know me, Mr. Brown Sugar Cinnamon. I'm like, when I go get a
baby.
bagel at one of my favorite spots, it's got to be cinnamon crunch. I got a cinnamon muffin from the Beanery as well.
You and Zoe. She's a plain
got a
crepe
lot of
bagel,
cinnamon.
cream cheese, the cinnamon toast crunch.
Mm.
It has a what do you call the? It comes out. You know, you shake it. To butter the bagel, yeah, like it's
the sugar.
Yeah, it comes in like a salt shaker type thing. You can like buy the cinnamon toast.
I have
crunch.
that. Literally
Weird.
Yeah. I'll send you a picture later.
You and my 4-year-old.
Yep. I make cinnamon bread with it.
Stop.
Swear to God.
Stop.
He's got as my witness.
We mix in some protein, man.
Protein?
Yeah. I don't know. It's just not breakfast if you don't have protein.
For one, I don't eat breakfast. Too early for me in the morning.
Yeah.
I get up at 5 and I'm like, I'll finish up my notes. And then by the time it's 6:15, I'm like, not really feeling a banana right now.
This morning was standard. Turmeric, cayenne, honey, apple cider vinegar, low warm water. That's it. First
weird.
Yeah, first 2 weeks it tore me up. But I think I'm used to it.
I thought you had the flu.
You're
like, man, I'm sweating.
Yeah, that was wild, wasn't it? It's weird.
I would always look at your nose and I'm like, man, it looks like
it's weird how
like droplets on a leaf just
weird how
when
my
the sun
body
comes
finally
out.
Adjusted to that. But I was just reading Jamie's. He tweeted back, and we were talking about when my dad said, you can quit, you just can't come home, and I've told version or bits and pieces of that story before. There's a little more to it. Because I remember sitting in that locker room by myself. Everybody, it was probably 6:45. It was almost 7. Everybody had kind of gone, and I sat there, and I just tapped my helmet against the concrete. So I'm sitting with my knees.
Yep, sure.
Just like this, and I'm just tapping my helmet against.
That is like the cutaway scene in every high school football film.
I'm just going back and forth. I'm like, man, there's no way. And I laughed because we talked about it off air. Like we just said last week that we could not sit in darkness without a certain amount of money
for 3 days.
And even then, we didn't think we could pull it off. Right?
I would not be able to.
Can you imagine what kind of darkness there was in 658 days of not playing a meaningful game?
Despite having every resource of light, whether it's your phone, whether it's something on your TV, computer, whether it's outside, going for a walk, you have a lot of things to get out some of that stress.
You're just not getting to do what you love.
But you still don't get to clear your head. As much as you say, man, I'm kind of clearing my head, you're not clearing your head.
It's just that team is... And it's funny, too, because I wonder, it's hard to go back, but I wonder like a month ago, remember when fans would tweet at us or we would talk or we would be at the game or something and fans would say, this is the most enjoyable team to watch. And I should have gone back then and said, I wonder what it is. Like, what is it that makes a sub 500 team at that time? You're the most favorite basketball team to watch. You've had Shields and Petway and Tim Miles made his run. And I mean, like, what makes this team fun? And I just looked at the three guys that we just talked about with Greasel, Casey, and
Derek.
D-Walk. And it's like they all have a story to tell about their perseverance and kind of why that team is, or why they're doing what they do. And it's pretty evident, isn't it?
Well,
Why they're fun to watch?
you
Because
would-
they maximize every time out.
You would think that the way this team is playing right now and the way the fan base is reacting, as if they are the team upsetting the teams in March, like the better teams in March. Though
I do think it's cool that the fan base gravitated toward this team before it was even really bearing fruit.
right. But even a selfie video that surfaced of a guy,
Oh, that was fantastic.
talking with Fred, right? And it's like that's a moment right there that you would see at the Sweet 16.
Hey, and did you see Coach Hoiberg finally tweeted back, and he simply said, "My man." Did you even see that? So Hoiberg tweeted back to the clip.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
and it's not like Coach Hoiberg he doesn't
Twitter.
use Twitter like that.
But when you're having fun, when things are going right, it's easy to do those things.
I just think it's interesting how, and coaches know, people in business leadership positions know when they've got a quality group. It makes it a lot less about the results. When you get the results that you're working to, and with that common vision, it's that much more enjoyable. But I think in enjoying the group that you're around is like 80% of it, right? It's a lot easier to be broke if you like who you're broke with.
Did Miles do some stuff like that before too?
What do you mean?
Bit? The same thing.
Yeah.
That Fred did?
But people thought it was just a shtick for Tim, and I just think that's who he is. I just think he's a joke. I just think that's who Coach Miles was. But it's weird how that didn't work out for him in the long haul because we thought his act grew old.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wait a minute, it's. Do you know what I think it is, though, in comparing the two? And I got to ask probably other Nebraska basketball fans this question. I think it's because the fan base didn't feel like they were meeting expectations. So they were tougher, even though it's more natural for Coach Miles to be like that and fun-loving and jovial, kind of a good guy. But the fan base, I think, wanted more. With this one, Coach Hoiberg really isn't that guy. Likable, but not super outspoken, fairly reserved. But I feel like this team, the fan base feels like is exceeding their expectations, so they're okay with it, which is
At this point in the season, they're exceeding expectations.
why we talked about it with baseball, right? It's hey, likable versus unlikable. And no coach is going to say, oh, that team just wasn't very likable. But this team seemed like on paper in the offseason, it was more like what the staff was after. And I asked out loud a couple weeks ago, remember when we had Coach Bolt on, does that change the expectation level for Nebraska's fan base, given what this team has on paper? And whatever the answer was, is I think how they'll judge this first month out of the gates. Very, very disappointed, hitting 61 batters. It's not really the number, I think 12 or whatever it was, 10. After San Diego wasn't anything that I think anybody wanted to rally around, even though San Diego's that's a good program, right? You come back and you kind of outslug South Alabama, and it's like, okay, momentarily we're good, but I think for at least another month we'll be pitting it against what our initial expectation levels were.
Well, he wanted his team to be more competitive, and he got it, as in Coach Bolt. Starting pitching was there again, but this week the offense came, and it came in a big wave. So in game one, you had Shanneman, who tossed 2 1/3 shutout innings in relief and struck out 4 Jags. Kyle Perry threw a scoreless 9th. That's another thing to mention. The bullpen. What the problem was in the opening weekend was, I don't want to say solved, but based on what you saw in weekend 1 to weekend 2, the bullpen was solved. They found resolve. We can say that at least, because there was at no time that South Alabama felt comfortable in coming back in a game, because this time situational pitching was there. and they executed what Coach Bolt wanted to coming in to this weekend. And he was hard on these guys because he knows that they won't fret from being criticized like they were in the opening weekend. I mean, he says
I actually
those
think there's something
things-
to that.
He
Drew
says those things because he knows, or because these guys, let's just say he says those things because he knows these guys have the ability to complete the journey. And it's not just a belief. It's just the fact of knowing. Like, these guys know they can do it. Coach Bolton knows they can also do it, which is why it's a high standard in that locker room.
You know, the cool thing, I think, and I think this works in business and in sports, even in your household. If it's not the first, if outside those walls aren't the first time somebody's hearing it, I think you can get away with saying a lot more things out loud, right? There are certain things that I'll say and can say through or to the media about either my family or the kids that they're comfortable with because they know that it's not the first time they heard it. And I think in that locker room with that team, that staff, Coach Arvell and Christie and Bolt, I think they talk to those guys a certain way. I think they communicate a certain way. So anything that's said via the media, it's not like the guys, it's not like Shanneman's thinking to himself, man, I can't believe he just said he was disappointed that, our back end wasn't better. He's probably told us, man, I'm pretty disappointed that the back end wasn't better. I'm pretty sure he told us we got to stop hitting guys, right? Because it sounded harsh post San Diego, but you know that wasn't the first time those guys heard it.
Those guys hold themselves accountable.
Oh, for sure. That's part of it. We hate to say it, but it is part of it. That's part of that culture word too. Amy, Coach Williams had a couple of, I know we got to go to break. She had a couple of great one-liners that I guarantee you, I know her team, it wasn't the first time that they've heard it when it comes to meeting expectation levels and how the season has gone via injuries. She said it out loud. I bet you she's told that to her team too.
At 9:30, we'll do a cleanup segment. We will continue with Omaha baseball, Creighton, things we didn't get to. But coming up next, we're talking to Brady Oltmans.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning. We'll be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Battled around, and it is Hoiberg saving the day. Hoiberg with a flip inbounds to Wiltshire, puts it up. Ball hits the head of another save by Hoiberg, and the left-handed layup is good. Sam Hoiberg in an and one.
Great basketball game in Lincoln on Saturday. Another great event took place as well Saturday night.
How good has he been, by the way?
Sam Hoiberg,
Yeah.
let's just say he may be the scrappiest player in all of college basketball, because that dude wants to involve himself in every play whenever he steps on the floor. And boy, does preaching and teaching active hands do justice when it comes to watching a guy like Sam Hoiberg play basketball.
Fell in love with him watching Pius play Bellevue West and a fairly difficult game a couple years ago at Bellevue West. And I was like, and I just remembered watching him in his brother's frame. I was like, God, these guys are yoked. And a couple of days later, he was told me that this is the first program at Pius where they had ever gotten into lifting. And I was like, really? You guys had some nice little frames to start with, and for guys that haven't lifted. And that core strength serves him well, being a smaller guy. He's so dang shifty. He takes care of the basketball.
He's not
because
afraid
low
to
the
get to the rack.
No.
Not one bit. He may not be the biggest guy on the floor, but he'll play like the biggest guy on the floor.
I'm telling you, my man is yoked. Like,
No doubt. No doubt.
gets it in.
But at night, the Team Jack Gala took place in Lincoln at the Cornhusker Marriott Hotel, I think is the name of the building. And it was a moving event.
It's unbelievable.
We'll just say that, because the amount of money that they raised, I couldn't believe it. I said to people at my table there, I attend a lot of trivia nights with silent auctions and some other charitable events with silent auctions. I don't think I've ever seen a silent auction that loaded with great baskets, items, whatever you want to call it, than the Team Jack fundraiser. And boy, did they raise some money too. I don't know the exact amount, but I can at least say this. Whenever they went around the room at the end of the night and said, who's just willing to donate? Nothing on the line, right? You don't get anything back for your investment here. Team Jack was able to raise $60,000 in that room by the night's end. Just right there. And that doesn't even include all of the things that they gave away live auction and silent auction. That's just that one little portion. But outside of it being a fantastic event for a fantastic cause, at the event were some pretty notable names. Alex Smith spoke at the event, and that was kind of unique at first until I found out his story. I didn't realize his daughter, I believe his 7-year-old daughter, was diagnosed with brain cancer last year. And I believe, if I remember the story correctly, they removed the tumor, but then residual tumor cells were present. So they have to go through another round of, I don't know if it's chemo or radiation or whatever. But he spoke about that and his journey, like coming back from his leg injury and thinking like, wow, like this is tough, versus now seeing like what his daughter has to go through. Other former Huskers were there. Rex Burkhead was there. Other big names.
He was the original. He had the great relationship with Jack. I remember him seeing that event a couple years, and we had Jim Kelly as the keynote speaker. And if you ever want like perspective, just listen to somebody. Again, when Jim Kelly compared it, his journey, missing part of his mouth and half his tongue, and to what his son was going through, and it's like, man.
Well, it affects you differently when it's your offspring.
No, what 100%. It's just a fantastic event. It's legendary.
Yep. And Cam Jurgens was back after going to the Super Bowl. Kenny Bell was there. Just a lot of names. But then the Nebraska coaching staff again was present somewhere. And we talk about it a lot on this show, about how invested they are into the community and how involved they are in recruits' lives and their team and their players' lives, and all of that jazz. But until you live it, you can only like speak it so much. So it was refreshing for me to actually see it in the flesh. Coach Rule was there, Coach White was there, Coach Dvorak was there, Omar was there.
Hales, yeah.
Other members of that staff were there in like director roles. Trev Alberts was there. Ted Carter was there. A lot of the governor was there. So being able to watch and interact with some of these coaches like I say, in the flesh was good for me. And, I crossed paths with Coach Dvorak in the bathroom. I was walking in, he was walking out, and I kind of just awkwardly standing in the bathroom doorway, talked to him a little bit about how we were just talking about him on our show and how much he loves football. And that's what we gauged, at least from him. And I could really see that he didn't want to be anywhere else in that moment. And I thought, wow.
Meaning you had his full attention?
I had his full attention. And I'm like, wow, in the midst of this event, you're probably thinking a bunch of different things.
Why is this weird kid accosting me in the bathroom?
But he wanted to hear what I had to say, and then he was willing to converse with me. But the biggest takeaway that I had, DB, and again, we'll talk to Brady Oltmans here in a few moments, but I wanted to get to this story before we did, was talking to Coach White after the fundraiser was over. I saw him walking out with his son, T3, and...
Oh, you guys are cool now.
Oh, yeah.
T3.
That's how he introduced him. So I'm like, man, I will never forget that. Me and Tony White are boys. No, but I introduced myself, and I have an easy icebreaker, right? It's, hey, I have this morning show in Omaha with Damon Benning. You probably have at least heard his name once or twice just with that program or with Coach Rule. And he's like, oh, yeah, I know Damon. Him and Coach Rule are best buds. And, no, he didn't say that, but I can fluff the story a little bit. And I was just talking with Coach White, and here are the three things that I took away from my conversation. Relationship building is one. I know we use that term a lot whenever we describe this coaching staff, but this is someone that genuinely cares. I got in the car and drove home with Ashley, and I said, it's no wonder why people or kids want to play for this team, for this staff, for this guy. It's because you're never worried about not getting return fire. Does that make sense? Like, he's not going to ever just say, shake your hand and like move forward and not treat you the same as he's going to treat somebody else on the street. Like, he's always going to be there to return fire with questions or answers from him to want to get to know you and vice versa. I never felt a wind of the fact that he was ever going to not make me a priority in that conversation.
Completely agree.
The second thing, I used the term already, but was invested. He never lost eye contact. He never seemed disinterested. He asked questions about my personal life and wanted to know the next time that I'd be up in Lincoln. Can you imagine just asking somebody that, like, hey, when's the next time you're going to be up there? Like, I'd love to talk, like, continue like our conversation. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to show up at practice, like, March 20th, first day, or whenever, media members can first show up.
It's wide open.
I'm like, I'm going to show up as much as I can, because I want to get to know you guys and this team. And he's like, let me know when you're coming back up. What coach says that? I know I'm a media member in town and not just like some average Joe, but like even for me, like what coach tells a media member like, hey, let me know when you're back. And then the last thing that I wanted to say is he mentioned Nebraska nice, which is something that kind of like stuck with me because a question I had for him, I didn't want to ask him a football question like, man, Coach Dvorak said your offense or defense is chaotic. Like, tell me why you think it's chaotic. I'm like, we don't need to talk football right now. Like, let's get to know each other. And I asked him, what's the biggest change from coming over to New York to Nebraska? And he goes, the people are a heck of a lot nicer here. And I'm like, oh, no kidding. And then his son chimes in and goes, oh, you have no idea. And it's a real thing because, I mean, I visited New York a couple of times and people in New York aren't as nice. But what I took away from that was he never let the negative world like enter his life when he was up in Syracuse. Like he was doing his thing. He did it his way. And none of the I'm better than you vibes or hey,
Didn't
I'm
you love
in
it?
for
Don't you
me
love
vibes.
his cadence? Like his delivery is real.
It never came out like that. And it's just something that it's easily picked up on. It was like he wasn't playing me, right?
Yeah.
He was there for the conversation. And I walked out, like I said, of that conversation the rest of the night. I couldn't think of anything else outside of the fact of like, wow, I can't wait to make my way back up there. To not only just talk to him, but to talk to everybody else up there. Like that's a small sample size of what the staff is.
I'm telling you. And it's by design. It's not by chance. I mean, in the same vein, you get guys that are authenticity is always what I talk about, right? So I pit him against a guy like Coach Coop. They're polar opposites in their delivery. Coop's high energy. He's kind of a lover. He's an encourager. He's super confident, and you can feed off of that. And then you pit that against a guy that still is a lover, is all about kids, but a much different delivery style, right? So when you need to reach different kinds of kids with the same staff, you need to have a similar vision, even though they have different personality traits. That's where common language matters. That's where being on the same page matters because they're two completely different people. And the cool thing is, just like on a personal note, it's like it works, right? Because I have a kid that loves the hay, the energy,
right?
But in the same vein, he also likes just to be able to sit down and have a one-on-one conversation. So when you can tag team it with a guy like Super Coop and Coach White in terms of their personalities to talk defense, you're getting the best of both worlds for a personality. And I'm telling you, I just think it's totally intentional. It's totally intentional how he built this.
They leave you with the feeling of I can't wait to go back. Can you imagine just me saying that and now put a recruit in my shoes?
Yeah,
they're thinking the same thing. It's not that this is because I'm a media member in town talking to a coach that he's just like building me up so that I say nice things about him. If I didn't want to say nice things about him, I don't have to.
So remember last week, and somebody had the great GIF where they tweeted back to me, after DB has a conversation with somebody that holds his interest, it's like, and then I think the GIF said, "Are we best friends?" See, that's what I was saying. Like when they talk to you, it's almost like, "Are we that cool? Are we that?"
That's how I felt, man.
See, now you know,
and I get it. And until you experience it, it sounds like I said, it sounds like a lot of fluff. But if you ever get the chance to experience something like this with this staff, you'll say the same thing.
What I tell you, it's like, are there cameras around? Am I on candid camera? Like, it's not a DB. And I try to tell people that it's not a. Well, no, it's not. It's like I could see through the BS, right? Like I know if it's not legit. I've done this forever. Like I know, and I'm just telling you, you feel different when they talk to you. I'm not gonna lie, it weirds me out a little bit. But I've said this out loud before, right? I constantly second guess these conversations because they shouldn't go like that between strangers.
No, Not one bit.
Just shouldn't, but it does.
Let's change gears. Let's talk to Brady Oltmans. We can continue the conversation with him. He's on StreamYard with us now. Brady, I don't know how much you caught of that story as you kind of sat back and, took whatever in that you can. But I was just telling a little bit about my first interaction with Coach Wyatt and Coach Dvoracek. And I guess I'll ask you the same thing, because for a lot of us that are, heavily involved with this team, this program, it's easy to kind of just regurgitate what we hear, right? Oh, big relationship building, like they're in it. They're not in it, not just in it to win it, but in it for the player, in it for that next recruit. Do you have a similar experience? Like, can you echo a lot of stuff that we're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. There have been a couple of times where I've reached out to, email, even administrative staff members, people that Matt Rule brought in, not only on the coaching side, but just kind of, in the administration side of football. And within a couple of minutes, they'll email me back. They text me back. If I have a question, a point of clarification, or even just, asked about, are you cheering for the Eagles in the Super Bowl kind of thing? And they're like, of course, because some of them are from Philly and coached with him at Temple. They're big people builders. It's not just hearsay and coach speak that you get out of there. They're very fundamental relationship built people, and they'll talk to you like a person and not like a media apparatus or something like that.
Brady, be honest. Was there a point in time where you had to check with yourself and say, maybe too good to be true isn't exactly it, but you want to do so, you want to take some self-inventory and say, am I being gullible here, or is this really how you guys are? Like, did you do that?
Oh yeah. Well, and I've kind of being a small town Nebraska guy, you kind of check yourself. Like, if somebody's being that nice to you right away, you kind of have, just a knee-jerk reflex. Like, is this guy playing me? Like, is he trying to get something out of me kind of thing? And especially like with the media coaching thing, there's always kind of that point of separation where like you want to be close with them. You want to have a good working relationship with them, but it's easy if they try to like spin you on something and you kind of buy into it. So you kind of have to have a healthy little distance to it. So yeah, I mean, I approached it that way, but you still, at the end of the day, they talk to you like a person, and you kind of like, even with that, the arm's length separation, you still kind of feel like, okay, no, they care. Like, this isn't just a coach media thing. They truly care.
We're talking to Brady Oltmans, Nebraska football and recruiting reporter for Hail Varsity. And if you want to sign up for a Hail Varsity subscription, you can do so by using the promo code DB or AR. DB gives you that yearly discount. AR gives you that monthly discount, and you can check out articles that Brady and the rest of the Hail Varsity team writes. Brady, take us down the recruit watch train, because I know that's kind of your premier focus, at least just in a lot of articles, outside of the fact that you wrote a ton about, each positional group. But I want to take this aspect first, because with Dylan Raiola in town over the weekend, figuring out if he's next is what people really want to know. But outside of Raiola, who's next on your list, or Nebraska's list in this case? What baskets do they have their hands in, and what can be expected?
Well, it's kind of, I can't remember who I was talking with about it, but we kind of got to talking, does Nebraska get a commit before, the VIP junior day and the big group that they've got coming in right about the first week of spring ball. And I kind of thought, naturally, you tend to say no, but the way that this coaching staff is really aggressive on the recruiting trail, you thought, there might be just a random kid from Texas or something that commits. And sure enough, they get Roger down there at Rice Consolidated I guess it'll be last week now. And I think they're going to continue to kind of, especially once the recruiting dead period kind of opens up, they're going to be a little bit more active with it, and they're not going to rest on their laurels and wait until that VIP junior day. The next individual guy that kind of catches my eye is Ian Flint. They've been really aggressive, knowing that he is a priority, trying to build that relationship. And obviously his sister throws at Nebraska on the track team, so they've got a good relationship there. Their dad is a former Nebraska trackster, so there's a lot of connection there. And I think you see that in some of the Texas pipeline or Texas high school guys that they want to get in. And then obviously the Bellevue West standouts, Isaiah McMorris has got plenty of visits, Nebraska included. Davon Hall would be on that list as well. And then obviously Damon knows they're seriously looking at kids from West Side. So they've got their hands and, spread out all over the place, all over the map. But I don't think that means that they want to get them all, basically.
Unfortunately and fortunately.
Yeah.
what you said early on, it's like you want to keep a healthy distance. And I swear I've tried, but I'm like all in, right? And I'm a part of the media, I guess, which is hard for me because I do the radio broadcast, right? So as the play-by-play voice or the color voice, it's like, yeah, you're on the Homer network, but when it's your kid involved, that's not my deal, right? Like I have to draw that separation. We just put together his schedule last week, and he's one of those guys that is now going down on March 25th. I tried to guard against it. I did not win that battle. Nebraska staff greater than dad, which we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, so he's got to be down there on the 25th too. And I'm looking at that March 25th day. Brady, what do you think it was about gathering the momentum real time that has made that such the weekend, especially this early in spring?
Well, it kind of runs with the theme of what this coaching staff does with recruiting. I mean, Matt Rule comes in and immediately hits the ground running. He offers, like 2 offers within the first 24 hours, and one of them is Jalen out of West Side, and they ultimately get him to sign and come to Nebraska. That recruiting gains steam as you get more guys, you build more excitement. Sure, they're undefeated right now, which everybody is at this point in the offseason, but the energy is still there. And then I think the other big domino that comes in is once you get the number 1 overall recruit in the country set is, lock in a visit and be there. Other guys want to play with that kind of caliber of athlete. And if Nebraska is a big enough draw for him, enough to get on his radar and take a visit, they say, well, maybe it's good enough for me too. So they are attracted to that. They want to kind of be in that same pot. A lot of kids are coming that same weekend. They'll be around each other. They'll get to talk, and it just, competition breeds success. Iron sharpens iron. And it's just kind of one of those things that once that ball gets going, it's tough to get it to stop. So and I think getting it right at the beginning of spring ball is big too. You get that momentum going. It kind of stirs the pots, kind of stirs maybe the players that are still in the program because they get to see the kids and they get to, feed off that energy a little bit. And then it's only a week before the spring game, and then the fans get to feed off that energy too.
Talking recruiting is one of my favorite things to do with you, man. A question that, or not really a question, it's somebody that we really didn't even get to talk about all too much when his offer did come was Corey Pittman III. And the spotlight has not escaped the 8th grader here in our backyard, which could be looked at as one of the more crazier offers in a good way that has been given so far. Is offering somebody so talented this young really that crazy anymore, though? Because it seems no matter how old you are, a coach will find you one way or another.
Yeah, it's not that crazy at all. I mean, obviously it's going to garner headlines because of the age. I mean, it's an oddity, but it's not crazy. I mean, you've got the Trent Seaborn, I think is his name, that 8th grade prodigy down in Alabama who is playing varsity and, dropping dimes against guys 4 years older than him. Nebraska was one of the many schools to offer him this last fall. It's if you're going to stand, and the way that previous prodigies have kind of worked out the college game, I think it lessens worries. And now coaches are saying, well, if we see this kid, if he's got it, capital IT, it in 8th grade, they're going to not hesitate to offer a scholarship as much now. And then they're going to try to stay invested. It kind of draws out the recruiting process over some years, and they're, not allowed to do certain things, take all the visits and everything until a couple of years later. But if you want to talk about relationship building, what this coaching staff likes to do, starting early and in the 8th grade is a good way to do it. And if you get kind of that excitement for Nebraska football built in those kids at 8th grade, I think it helps out the program in a lot of ways.
Brady, if you're taking a look at, will Nebraska, do you think, put themselves in a position where time will be of the essence to commit? could you see a class or the fervor being such that everybody's got to get all in a certain amount of time?
It's really difficult to say because Nebraska still kind of is behind the 8 ball a little bit. A lot of other schools have multiple, 24 commits right now, and Nebraska just got its first one last week. But I think, especially, it's kind of a cop-out to say, but it all depends on, not all of it, but it largely depends on what happens with Dylan Raiola. I mean, if he were to commit in May or even in April, get ready for a multitude of commitments and Nebraska energy in the weeks that follow, because that's the big domino to fall, and guys want to follow that. If he draws out his commitment, it might take a little bit of time, and the coaching staff might get a little happy feet or a little bit concerned. But we've seen, it doesn't take long for this coaching staff to garner a handful of recruits at a given time, and I definitely don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility this year either.
Good tease. We'll talk about that more in our sports cleanup. Thanks, Brady.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Leo.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
I don't know if you caught it, but DB's just out here taking selfies of himself from an above angle, trying to get his best look. That's exactly what he's doing. That's why he hasn't put the headset on, because he knows I'm right. It's Coffee and Cream in the morning with Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. We're having some fun, right? It's Monday. I almost wanted to say it's Friday. You wish
Did
it
I
was
do
Friday?
something wrong?
Anybody?
Andrew's going to learn here shortly.
But that you
It's going to be hard lessons. No,
You
it's
don't- you
it's
don't have a good
it's
side,
it's it seems like a Monday, but it's fun like a Friday. Just because of the rain last night, and I sleep with the windows open, so
yeah, you
I
like
heard
to
every
sleep in
I
a
heard
flood.
heard every bit of it.
It's like
well,
Noah's
it's not.
Ark in your house.
Well, it's kind of blocked, that front window. I don't think much can get in there. It'd have to fall
You know that
just
Twitter
right.
page, Oddly Terrifying? Like that could be your
Did you
house on that page.
So you tweeted out, or you asked me about the one picture where those seamen on the front of the ship
you
when it
say?
was rocking.
Oh.
There was another one that they tweeted out that where the boat was taking on water in the ocean.
Oh yeah, I saw that one with the
Yeah.
water coming in. No thanks. No thanks.
I just want to know where it goes.
No.
It just goes out, right? Doesn't it drain out?
Yeah, through the bottom hole, or like
Uh-huh.
what's going on? But yeah, being out in the ocean, it's a
dangerous place.
A whole new world.
Yeah, no thanks. I thought a shark was going to pop through that window or something.
Fudge. They're not like that. You got a bad. Oh, you've
I've
seen
watched
too many,
Jaws too many
47
times.
meters down, man.
Hey, as we went into the break, Brady brought up a good point with Dylan Raiola, and I know we wanted to get back into the conversation of expectation and how that kind of weighs on an 18, 19-year-old kid as they come into college of can you meet expectation versus if you don't, how you overcome some of the things in your path. Which I think is very interesting because we talked a little bit about that with Malachi Coleman in this recruiting class of somebody that has a lot of expectation going into Lincoln. And it's kind of unnecessary stressors that get put on to the player, but at the same time necessary to acknowledge by the player and know that, I do have a lot of hype following me, but it's because of all the work that I put in to get to this point. And people know that I've had that within me. So if I don't live up to the cause, if I don't live up to the expectation, what will then happen? Well, we saw a little bit of that with Scott Frost. He didn't live up to expectation at all.
And unfortunately, right, we've seen a lot of different there's a lot of unique perspectives. You can ask guys like John Perella, who came back here to coach, was let go for, a lot of things other than just coaching acumen. Josh Banderas' dad was a Lincoln guy. He played here. Mixed reviews on the amount of pressure having went to school at Lincoln Southwest. Xavier Watts, one that got away, wanted to do something different other than just staying at the home school. Malachi Coleman, Lincoln East local guy, wants to embrace staying in town with what comes with the local school. I ask about, you mentioned Frost. That one is, it's a case study into its own. People don't want to talk about it anymore because I think it's easier to just say you moved on. And I get it,
under the rug.
And I get it, but there's plenty to learn. There's plenty to learn,
And there's plenty
from
to
start.
acknowledge.
And don't think we don't talk about it in our household with expectations, pressure being a privilege, sharing a last name but being your own person. The Johnsons went through it with Keegan in Iowa. Raiola will go through it with Dylan
Wherever he goes.
and I think it's a thing.
Well, we talked a little bit about this too, of the keep showing up aspect of, hey, he keeps showing up at Nebraska. If Nebraska keeps showing up on his radar, Nebraska and it will always have some type of place in his heart. It will hold some type of place in his heart because he is a legacy, because he grew up, basically on the football field with his dad, no matter where he was. And if it was in Detroit, that's where most of the time was spent, then yeah, but Nebraska will always hold a place in his heart, no matter what he so chooses. But keep showing up not only applies to Dylan Raiola, but it also applies to other recruits. It's something that we talked about during the break. You got a call last week from a Nebraska staff member,
CJ Cavazos.
and he not only wanted to just kind of, shoot
Yeah,
it
we
with
were
you.
so the first, however long, he's just talking like he just wanted to catch up, and I liked him because he's big energy guy, and we were just talking about, like when his wife was coming and family and stuff like that, and his son when he got offered by Ohio State, and just a multitude of things. He was very, very cool. He was very, very gracious. He was a big, hey, I'm just fortunate, right place, right time. It's a total honor to be with Coach Rule. Like it was just kind of small talk.
And what did that small talk then lead to? It led into, hey, let's talk a little bit about your son.
Well, yeah. He just was
and ask about him and see.
Asked state tournament.
Mhm.
Did I think they could make it to state? How the staff couldn't wait to get down to PBA and watch some of those guys live, like under the same roof. And I was like, hey, that's pretty cool that you'd embrace the opportunity to come watch and play different sports. And he kind of said it like I was a ding dong. He's like, why wouldn't we? Right? Like it's in our backyard. We get and I said, oh man, that's super refreshing.
What did that lead to? What did keep showing up lead to?
Well, a week ago, 10 days ago, I said, well, he doesn't want to go down on March 25th because I just think he wants to see it on just like a regular day. That's what I said like 8, 9, 10 days ago. Today, this past weekend, he's going down on March 25th.
And
so yeah, that's what that led to.
And that's the takeaway. It's not about not only just showing up on campus for Dylan Raiola, but it's the staff to keep showing up on other recruits' lists.
And he's played a couple of times in Lincoln already for state basketball. Now, he was young once, wasn't on the recruiting radar. Last year, every opportunity to go down. That was I sat with Jason Peter and some other guys that weren't on staff, but we talked about just being present at PBA. So all I did was he said, hey, give my best, best wishes. Looking forward to seeing him play other sport, play another sport and compete. Here he's this, I hear he's that, whatever. And he's like, hey, give him my best. And so when I got ready to hang up, he's like, hey, don't big time me now. Just give him my best. Okay. So he wanted to know about the whole conversation. How did it start? Yada, yada, yada. I told him, and he's like, yeah, he goes, I don't want to wait that long. Let's go March 25th. So I was like, okay, I guess we're going March 25th, right? Just little things. It wasn't even, hey, come down. It wasn't even, he knew that he had the standing invite going into it because, they were like, hey, come every day if you want. Like, that would be the more the merrier. But when I said that, I don't know what clicked. And I try not to ask him those kinds of things this early, but I don't know what clicked. But he's like, yeah, let's go down.
But let's be real here, because I don't think
I think it was the basketball approach.
Right. But like I said, I don't think you or he would be, overcome with like some type of thought about me for saying this. But
well, this ought to be good.
If he wanted to go to Nebraska, he would already committed by now. If Caleb wanted to be a legacy of you, I truly believe that he would have committed by now. But because he's keeping his options open,
I don't think he knows enough.
Is that just because of age right now? Just because he's a junior?
Yeah, I just don't think he knows enough.
Okay, well, even still. But like a lot of times I see with legacy kids in state, they're like, hey, I want to play where dad played. Hey, I want to play with the team that I grew up watching every single weekend.
Yeah.
And, maybe I'm thinking too far into that side of it and not into the player side of it of, hey, there's a lot of other programs out there that can benefit me or help me improve to get to becoming a Sunday player at some point. Maybe I'm just a little oblivious to that stuff because I'm not in those shoes. But that just goes to show that Nebraska also is making it a priority to stay on his radar because they know that it's going to be hard to get a kid with his talent to come to their university.
I think it's different for everybody. You know what I told him to do is, you need to talk to the Josh Banderases. You need to talk when he already does talk to Keegan and the Maverick Noonans, who he thinks the world of. Because everybody has their own story to tell. And do with that information what you will. The moral of the story is Nebraska's authenticity, I think, in just building relationships is how they're pulling it off. And that's just recruiting as a whole, just the authenticity of the relationships. They're good at what they do. And there's no two ways about it.
We'll switch it around, talk Creighton basketball with Ravi Lulla next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Moore has it, top of the key. Shot clock at 7. Back out to Dixon. Shot clock at 4. Dixon wants to attack all the way in. Layup is good. And a foul. He's got 28 and he's going to the line. And they're rocking here in South Philadelphia.
Our poll question of the day was sparked by something DB said earlier this morning. And it's, what basketball program's feeling better about themselves right now as the season kind of winds down and postseason approaches? Is it Creighton, who is still going to be a part of the 68, but on the backtrack, right? Losing a couple of games here, and I think 3 out of their last 4, or is it Nebraska, who's won 4 straight, playing for an NIT bid, has a glimpse of what the 68.
And I know the easy answer would be to be Nebraska, but if you think Nebraska is just living on borrowed time and inevitably it comes to a close, that may factor into their basketball team psyche. And Creighton, conversely, could be thinking, we got better days ahead. So that's why it's not as low-hanging a fruit question,
right.
in my
It
opinion.
seems easy, but it's not.
Yeah.
If you really think about postseason. Let's welcome in Ravi Lulla now to talk more about Creighton. Ravi, good morning.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Ravi, what's up, buddy? Is Nebraska prolonging the inevitable, or is Creighton know that there'll be better days ahead?
Well, it depends on what you think the inevitable is for Nebraska. I mean, I don't think there's any blue skies out there in terms of what this season is, and unless if finishing above 500 is the big win, then yeah, that's possible, that's doable. But I think in the grand scheme of things, you look at their roster, you look at the guys they're probably losing next year, and as good as this year turned out to be in terms of coming together, you still look at long-term building blocks and success, and you're like, I don't know how much is going to be left from this year. As far as Creighton's concerned, it's kind of one of those things where I just don't really know what to expect from this team to say that there are for sure better days ahead. There's better days out there for sure, but are they behind them? Was it the 8-game winning streak that were the better days, and they're kind of regressing again the way we saw after the start of the season? I really don't know. What I do know is that they didn't look locked in pretty much from the jump against Villanova, a team that they needed to be locked in for, a game that they needed really to help themselves out in the Big East tournament seedings, and they just didn't look ready or locked in or whatever you want to call it. So I don't know if there's better days ahead. There's better in them than what we saw. I just don't know on any given day whether we're going to get it or not.
Yeah, Ravi, I want to ask both of you a question here. Both you and DB, you guys can both answer, and then I'm going to follow it up with a question to you. How many games this year do you think Ryan Kalkbrenner has double-digit attempts from the field?
Out of 20, 30 games?
Out of all of his games that he's played.
So it's going to be really low because it's something that actively angers me. He ends up in like the 8 to 9 range a lot.
Double digits.
And I'd love to see him in like the 12 to 15 range every game.
Yeah,
I'm
going to
answer
my question. Right? Go ahead.
I'll go first, and I'll say 6.
All right, 6. What do you think, Ravi?
I think it's definitely under 10. I'll say 8.
It is 7. Meet in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. He's averaging 70.9% from the field, and this team can't find a way to get him the ball at double-digit attempts.
It's worse.
That is the problem offensively.
No, let me ask you something, though, Ravi. I'm telling you, I argued about this for 2 weeks. So I'll ask you, how much of that is not necessarily just play design? Hey, chalkboard, draw it up. But for Kalk to occasionally at least face the basket or get the ball off the block, maybe on the elbow. Like, how much of that is his willingness to do something different with his own repertoire?
I mean, that might be part of it, but you also have to think like, okay, if he faces up, what do you want him to do there? I don't know. I just don't know if that's in his game right now where he can go 1-2 dribbles, kind of spin into a post up, and then make his move from there. I don't know if that's something he can do right now.
I'm with that.
Here's the thing that I think is the biggest issue for Creighton is I don't think they're very good at entering the ball into the post.
It's hard, actually.
I don't think the guards are very good at it. I think Kalkbrenner seals a lot more often than people realize, and they just can't get him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's the big issue is they just can't get it to him when he seals. He seals plenty.
I don't think it's so let me get clarity because I don't want to correct you if you're saying the same thing. I don't think it's that they don't know how to deliver an entry pass, which I do think is a difficult skill set because so many teams now don't play through the post. It's kind of a lost art. I think it's more late than not. I think it comes late or not when he actually has position. Are you saying something different or the same?
Well, I think it can be both.
Okay.
Right, because the timing is part of the skill of the entry pass, right? So whether it's, hey, I just can't physically get the ball in the right spot with a little bit of pressure in my face, or I don't see it until it's too late, those are kind of in that same skill set to me. Because I agree with you, like post entry is a skill that I don't want to sound like an old guy. Oh, it's a lost art, like the mid-range jumper.
Though.
But it is because a lot of teams just don't use it that way. I mean, we see how most teams use bigs. We've seen how Creighton has used bigs in the past. It hasn't really been a priority to get them post-up touches. Well, Kalkbrenner has the touch and the footwork that should really be the centerpiece of your offense, and everything flows outward from there because it's not just the field goal percentage. Look at your true shooting percentage. Look at your effective field goal percentage. He very well might be the most efficient 2-point scorer in the country, and he is getting less than 10 shots a game. Now, I understand with volume, efficiency sometimes or often wanes a little bit, but I'm willing to give up a little bit of that efficiency for more volume because the drop-off between his efficiency and the next guy's efficiency on that team is enormous.
Is it because to answer maybe part of DB's point and going off of what you were saying, is the lack of getting Kalkbrenner the ball because guard play is getting away from their strength when it comes to they were so good about passing the ball early on this season and during their winning stretch, but a lot more times than not when they are trailing, they put the ball on the ground. And when they put the ball on the ground, that's why I think there's a lot of late entry passes or even
they
late
dribble
looks
too
to
much?
Kalkbrenner
Oh,
because
I get it.
they're dribbling instead of passing. And if you were passing and moving defenders, Kalk would have that seal more times than not, and you could get it inside.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. They bog down really badly when the offense isn't going well. Their default is, I can just take this guy off the dribble. And to be fair, the only guy that can really do that consistently and make tough shots, I think, is Trey Alexander, and he's not shooting the ball well right now. So that's a problem. Nembhard has that to a certain degree, but he's kind of got to take you off. He's got to catch you by surprise a little bit to get shots off, especially inside, just because of his size. That's why I didn't love the Providence game where he had the ball in his hands for one of the last shots, was because, if you know he's shooting it, it's a lot easier to defend. He's harder to defend when you don't know what he's going to do with the ball. And a lot of these guys, whether it's Trey, whether it's Nembhard, whether it's Kaluma, whether it's Shireman, they tend to over dribble when the offense is getting bogged down and they're just trying to get a bucket and trying to get the team going. And the ball movement and the player movement off ball just really dies. And so I don't know if that's a direct correlation to Kalkbrenner. It probably is to a certain degree, but I also think it can go the opposite way, where if you can just find a way to get him a post touch because of how efficient he is down there, he's either going to have a really good chance of getting a bucket, or they're going to send a double, and now all of a sudden your entire offense opens up. It's kind of a chicken or an egg thing there for me in terms of, is it the fact that the offense is bogging down because they're not getting Kalkbrenner the ball, or are they not getting Kalkbrenner the ball because the offense is bogging down?
Of the staggering single-digit numbers, since we're on the single-digit theme, I'll get you out in this. Which was the most staggering that resulted that led to you think the score discrepancy? Only 6 turnovers for Creighton and never really being in that game. The fact that Caleb Daniels only scored 2 points, the fact Justin Moore only had 8, or the fact that Ryan Nimhart only made 1 field goal. Which of those single-digit numbers are the most surprising via the outcome?
In regards to the outcome, probably the turnovers, because you look at games against Villanova and you say, hey, if I don't beat myself, I like my chances. And they only had 6 turnovers. That's as good of a number as you're going to have against anybody. And the fact that they only had 6 turnovers, they really didn't beat themselves, at least in that regard. And they still were never really in it, is pretty alarming. Because if you look at it, you're like, hey, we turned it over 16 times, we played sloppy, we can clean that up. If you look at it and say, hey, we only had 6 turnovers, it becomes harder to start pointing at things to say, hey, what do I fix here in order to get a better result? And there are things that they need to fix, but it's more difficult than like, hey, we need to take care of the basketball.
Hot day for Eric Dixon, real quick, yay or nay? Hot day for Eric Dixon. That's why the drop coverage doesn't work, or is Creighton exposed in how they utilize drop coverage?
I mean, I think they're a little exposed in the way they utilize drop coverage. Their rotation behind Kalkbrenner has been really bad all year.
No doubt, because they just put the big man in the middle. Thanks, Ravi. Appreciate your time.
Hey, fantastic, Ravi. Thanks.
See you guys.
And thank all of you for listening to the show today. If you missed any of it, go to your favorite podcast platform, and you can find Apple, Spotify, Hail Varsity Radio, and find the rest of the show. We'll see you tomorrow.